Carl Nelson is a Tyler-based former stage and film actor, model, and current painter who explores multiple styles in his work. Suggested by almost all the artists I have interviewed, who I met was an exceedingly humble and generous man who, although nervous and insistent that he was not all that interesting, welcomed me into his home for an interview. Although he may not admit it, I believe he has lived an exceedingly interesting life, and I hope you will agree, as we journey into the studio of Carl Nelson.
Did you took some drama classes? I mean, I was a drama nerd. I mean,
no drama classes. I did I did like community theater and stuff down in Rusk.
Cool.
And I've always been interested in like video and audio production, so went to school for that. Sort of geared towards.
It's a lot of time. Theater was fun, but it was just a lot of like really time consuming out of your day, and like.
Yeah.
It seemed to like film better because it was just like you were in and out the day. Like you could go record something or, film something and then be done. But
yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I guess I'll go ahead and give you a little intro. So today I'm interviewing Carl Nelson. he's a artist here in Tyler, and anyway, Teresa and all the artists in Tyler have told me that I need to interview him. So I managed to, corner him and force him to do an interview today.
Thank you, Trisha and Brian.
So I kind of like to start with the beginning of people's kind of journeys and stuff. And so you mentioned, acting and stuff. That was kind of what you first got into. But were you interested in painting or anything like that before?
Oh, yeah. Always as a kid. And I thought you were going to go back earlier. I was going to start with my genealogy.
So when your grandfather immigrated.
And it's pretty interesting. I was going to talk about that. I mean,
go right ahead.
My grandma was a Mormon pioneer. She died on the trail. She's buried in Nebraska. And it's kind of famous. She was Rebecca Winters, which is kind of cool. She is the daughter of Gideon Burdick, the drummer boy who sailed across the Delaware with Washington during the war. But
yeah,
he's on the back of the quarters, the bicentennial quarters. So, I mean, he's my grandfather. But, yeah. And eventually the family did make it to Utah. I'm from southern Utah. I was born and raised in southern Utah. I was raised on a farm, a sheep and cattle farm. And Cedar City is the home of the Utah Shakespeare Festival. And so that had a lot to do with being exposed to, and even art, because the campus had a really cool gallery, the Braithwaite Art Gallery, and whenever I would spend time with my grandma, who worked in the kitchen on the campus, I would roam around the campus and kind of see behind the scenes of the Shakespeare plays and go to the gallery, and that really kind of exposed me young to this cool world of art. And yeah, and I've always painted. I've been surrounded by very, people that were not artists, but they were very, what's the word?
Creative.
Creative, yeah. My grandma made cakes. I mean, she decorated cakes. I had a grandma who was in ceramics. I mean, I guess that's the other closest thing. She did ceramics and stuff like that. So that was cool to spend time. And she was a teacher. Spent time with her doing that. But in high school, I was a painter, an artist. I took an art class from one of my favorite teachers, Marge McClure, who did that painting there. And I kind of did one of my favorite paintings that I've ever done in her class. But speaking of teacher, we were talking about your teacher earlier, but she was probably the one that gave me the most hope to being an artist, as far as seeing something in me, I guess. I mean, but
yeah. So did you have much encouragement through with your creative work, or?
So I always felt like I was the, the cartoon where the drunk stork drops off the wrong baby at the wrong house. Like he drops off the kangaroo at the mouse, mouse house. I always felt like I was dropped off at the wrong house. I don't feel like, I appreciate farming and stuff like that. And it really taught me work ethics and all that. But my mom was the most supportive out of, more than my dad. I mean, my dad, he played the violin, but he had, he was injured. His hand, the tendons in his hands were severed, and so he couldn't play the violin anymore. But I think he resented that a lot. Like, I couldn't imagine if I couldn't paint anymore. I don't know if I'd lost my hands or the ability to paint, or I know there's other outlets, and I know there are other outlets. I mean, painting is just one thing out of about 5 or 6 other things that I like to do. And right now I'm in painting, like, as far as the outlet, as far as like an artist outlet. But yeah, I had a lot of encouragement. My family was very supportive in everything I did, no matter how crazy or stupid. I mean, from acting to painting to I was in dance lessons. I mean, my mom put me in dance lessons when I was a kid. I have no idea why. I got a complex from that, and I probably gave a little girl a complex of that as well, because there was a move I was supposed to do, right, where you're supposed to lift her up over your head, and I mean, I've got noodle arms. I mean, I haven't been a muscular kid or an adult. I couldn't lift her up over my head, so I mean, that gave me a complex, and I'm sure it gave her an eating disorder of some sort, but I wish I could apologize to her. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't lift you over my head. If you're listening. Anyway.
So, how did you get into acting from there? I mean, I know you were kind of inspired by it being around the festival and everything.
Yeah.
But
so in high school, and I didn't seek it out. Like, I didn't audition initially. I was in the drama class, and there's the stage, and then there's the breezeway, and then the classroom is right behind the stage. So I was just sitting in there talking to some friends, just hanging out one day, and they were doing a production of West Side Story, and the teacher, the director or the teacher, Miss Heilman, she came in and she was like, "Oh, somebody just quit. I need Tiger," was the name of his character. It was a jet.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Do you want to do it? Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, sure." I was like, "Okay." And from that production, that was the first play I was ever in, was West Side Story. Do you know it? I mean,
yeah. No, I've
Here
I've
come
seen
the
movie.
Yeah. So, and that was it. And then I was in almost every single production from that, freshman years through, senior year. I had moved to in junior high. I had moved to Salt Lake City. Because growing up in a small farm town, conservative town, I mean, I was a new waver. I mean, I had bleached blonde hair one day, or I'd have pink hair, or, and now, I mean, these days, nobody bats an eye. But I mean, back then, growing up in a small town, so there was some, I was, getting bullied a lot. I moved to Salt Lake City, and luckily my aunt let me live with her. And I went to high school there my junior year. And when I came back my senior year, and I dropped out halfway through. I couldn't finish high school, but I actually got my GED. I went back and got my GED. And I started school that fall. I was in class with my classmates in my senior year. So, I mean, I didn't. So, yeah, but anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question. I mean, if I zone out, if I go just tell me.
No,
just
it's
answer
fine.
the question, Carl.
Usually that way I get to like more interesting information.
Yeah, geez, Louise.
I mean, you should have heard me and Daisy Joey last week. We couldn't stay on topic for anything. So out of high school, what do you go on to do?
I took an acting class in college. So after I was one semester, and then I went back to Salt Lake, and I went to Salt Lake Community College, and I started doing, I took some general classes and stuff like that, and I took an acting class. And in Salt Lake, in Utah, they film a lot of stuff, and so I tried to get an agent, but they don't want to represent you because you haven't done anything. And all I'd done was high school stuff, and so I did a college production, and then I started doing extra work, which I'm glad I did. I love being on set, and I went on. I wanted to be an extra or just to be on the set, just to watch and observe. And I loved the hustle and bustle of it, and people setting up the camera and the mics and all that stuff, and just something about it. It was like I was drawn to it. So I finally got an agent after, you have to audition. So it was kind of like, that was super stressful. You audition, do a scene with one of the casting agents, and so I got representation. And then by 19, because of all my theater work, I got my first professional job on stage at 19. And about that time, 21, I got my first professional TV show. I was in a made-for-TV movie, mini drama, CBS. Yeah. It was the John Benet Ramsey miniseries, and I did a terrible British accent in front of an entire world. But oh my God! But that was cool. That was my first TV, major IMDb credit. But
yeah. So what kind of, did your acting career go anywhere from there, or?
So in between that, I was working for Delta Airlines, and so that was my day job, and then acting, and then I was lucky enough to find Helen Forsberg. Well, her daughter Mary. So we became friends because we worked. I had so many odd jobs. No, I was working. Okay, so before Delta, I was washing dogs at the Dog Show was the name of this place, and Maya or Mary, she worked there every summer. So I met her. I got introduced to Helen, who became an important part of my life as far as art goes. She was a ballet critic for the Salt Lake Tribune. And I rented out her basement. She exposed me to the art world. She took me to Brian Kerchesnik. He's one of my favorite artists, but one of his first shows. He's a Utah artist. He went to school at BYU, but he's kind of a big deal now. But she also taught me the importance of collecting art. With her, I collected some of my first pieces of art. Ted Wasmer, a bunch of different artists. But anyway, I never bought a Brian Kerchesnik, and I really regret doing that. But anyway, did I answer? I need to come back around.
No, I've got another question.
Trying to remember where you even asked me.
Well, I was asking you about your acting career, but you mentioned that Helen had taught you the importance of collecting.
Of art, and taking me to really cool shows.
So what was the importance of collecting art for you?
Just to, when you go to a show, let's say, and even today still, when I go to an art show and I see a piece of art that resonates with you, It doesn't happen with every piece. Like, you can see and appreciate the beauty of a piece of art, but if something speaks to you, it's probably a good chance you should own it. Like, it's probably, it's speaking to you for a reason. And sometimes you can't afford it. And a lot of people have told me that about my art, that it resonates with them, but they just can't afford it, or, and I try to make art that people can. I don't have my prices at thousands of dollars like some artists. So I try to keep it reasonable, because I don't want my art to stack up in my house like it is. I mean, there's a whole cubby full of art over there. I want people to have it in their house. I mean, so.
Yeah. So this is a question like I like to ask a lot of artists, because it's kind of cool to see different people's opinion. But like, what makes a good piece of art?
Oh my. Well, if I knew that, I would be a millionaire. Geez Louise, what makes a good piece of art? So, you've interviewed like Ingrid and Heather and Datsa. So, you can see, when I look at like Heather, like that's one of Heather's, that church.
The church out there.
These are Ingrid's. That's Tanya Johnson. The Effers, or whatever, is Datsa. And I had never heard the F-bomb, by the way, and until Zach came along. Has anybody ever dropped the F-bomb on your show?
I really don't.
I mean, I just don't want to censor. I mean, but
Yeah,
I don't want to swear or anything. But you can see them. I can see Christy Joy in that painting. I can see Heather in that painting. Deborah Setzer, I can see. And if you know them, or if you know their personalities, like you can kind of see somebody in it, and you can kind of see their personalities, and it's kind of cooler if you kind of know the artist. Ted Wasmer, one of his. I mean, I see Ted in all of his painting. I've got 5 original Ted Wasmers. Gabe Langholtz, I've got 5 originals, I think, 2 prints. He's one of my favorite Texas artists. He's in Austin, but Gabe Langholtz is a really cool guy, cool artist. The originality, I guess, I don't know. The colors, composition, but the spirit, I think, is probably the most important thing. If it, speaks to you, or if you can kind of see the artist in it, or the spirit of it. And I usually stop painting, or, I try to, but I usually murder all my paintings by overpainting. But I try to stop when I see the spirit of it, and try not to go too far. But
yeah,
that's hard to do.
What do you think that is? Is it an obsession with detail kind of clouds the overall picture of it?
No, some paintings, you like, okay, when you sit down to paint, and it's like, it's so cliche, but like the TikTok, where it's like, well, Vincent Van Gogh, it's like, why do you paint? And it's like, well, I paint to, blah, 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 be free. It's, but when you're painting, like, it's, the world disappears. Like, you are channeling something higher than yourself. Some paintings that I've painted came as visions. It's very strange, but sometimes you'll get like a download in your head, and you'll see the entire composition, and you're like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. I got to hurry and paint that, or sketch it out before I forget. And I'm still learning values and certain things, but this one I wanted to do, Joel, this one, for example, I wanted to use just simple, like, black and white. And I'm totally, like, after taking Deborah Setzer's class at Studio Art Lounge, I got to promote them. I've got some pieces hanging there, but Studio Art Lounge, you can take classes. They have weekly classes, almost, like, different artists. But Deborah Setzer had a class on color, mixing color, and she taught how to kind of mix this primary gray, just using red, blue, and yellow. And, I use burnt umber to make a really cool gray. So I'm totally into that right now. I actually kind of want to do more black and whites and grays, but
yeah.
but
No, and I find this all interesting. The thing is, like, I really enjoy getting into, like, very specific nerdy detail about whatever I'm interested in at the time.
That's cool, yeah.
So I don't know if anyone else is. So you talked about it was either Helen or Helena.
Helen, yeah.
Helen, and how, you know, she brought you into the art world and showed you the value of collecting art and stuff. So what was y'all's relationship there? Like, how else did she help you, I guess, in your journey?
By giving me a place to live, which was not easy to do back then. I mean, living on your own. I mean, you could live with friends, and I tried that, and there was, you know, you'd rent an apartment with somebody, and it's just, oh my God. But, you know, she was older. She was a professional. She was a critic for, you know, the Salt Lake Tribune. So, and she took me to ballets. I mean, she took me to art shows. She introduced me to artists, actors, and also she was into advocating for, you know, she had volunteered at the Utah AIDS Foundation. She had someone very dear to her, you know, who passed away of AIDS, and so she was a big activist in the Utah AIDS Foundation and City of Hope. And so these shows, I was donating some of my art to some of these galas or whatever, and it was kind of cool because I was in the paper a couple of times, and my art sold, and it was for a good cause. But she just, I don't know, just opened my eyes to. But still, back then, I didn't know that you could be an artist and still have to work a full-time job. I mean, I always thought, like, if you're an artist, yeah, you can just do that. And some people do, and it's commendable, but I mean, it's very hard to do. But I learned that, you know, you usually have to have a part-time job or, you know, another job to be able to do what they do, to be able to afford the canvases and the paint and stuff like that. And at that time, I was a young, you know, I thought I was a young, cool artist, and I could stay out all night and party and stuff like that. And I had no discipline. And I would paint and be like, yeah, I'm so cool. Look at my cool painting.
So I'm not trying to date you or anything, but like, just so
frame?
I get an idea.
So, well, geez. So you were born, what, 1999?
Yeah.
I've heard on one of your podcasts. So this is all before you were born. This is like 90s, 98, 97, 98, 99. We went to New York to you know, she took me to the MoMA, I mean, the Museum of Modern Art. That was in 2000, right before September 11th. I mean, so that time frame. I mean, and I was, you know, acting. I was in a play, actually, that opened 3 days after September 11th. It opened, we were doing Sidemen. It opened in Park City at the Egyptian Theater, and that was 3 days after September 11th. That was probably one of the hardest productions that I've ever been in, just because of the time frame. I mean, it was so surreal.
What's the? Because I gotta imagine that's got to be tough on actors, tough on the audience and stuff.
Yeah, because
what was that like?
Broadway went dark, and I can't remember if we opened the same day Broadway came back on, but it was subdued. I mean, the play got good reviews, but you could just tell, like, and I guess if you're rehearsing and all that stuff, you just go out and you're doing it anyway. I mean, you're pretending, so you just do it, and it was all a haze. I mean, I actually don't even remember. I remember looking out in the audience, and being in rehearsal, some of the spots where the beats where you think people are going to laugh, it was just not, everybody was numb. Everything was complete, it was just, but it still got a good response. And it was just kind of interesting how quickly people kind of moved on from that. And then we went to war and everything. I mean, the whole world changed. I mean, after that, but it's just a different time. But that was one of the hardest plays I've done. I've done 3 things, stage-wise, that has been very difficult, and that was one of them. But
yeah. So, you said, you kind of transitioned from doing plays and stuff to more commercial work and stuff. So, how did that happen?
So, just slowly building up, my stage resume was pretty strong. I mean, gosh. And then my film resume, I did voiceovers and stuff like that. I was an extra, and then started getting, I got commercial work, print ads, but just auditioning. I mean, slow, just auditioning and getting lucky. But finally my last thing I did, I guess, was, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it actually was a big deal for me because of where I was and how I had overcome a lot of things as far as insecurities, like we talked about before this thing started, that nervousness and that energy you have before you go on stage or before, you walk into a room and audition for somebody. And auditioning is probably one of the hardest things out of the entire process that I hated the most. I disliked, auditioning because it's not the same thing. I mean, but it's very simple. It's hard to explain. I mean,
is it like a fear of rejection from it, or
it was a fear that I wasn't doing it right, or you go in there and you're like, am I supposed to look at the camera, or am I looking at the casting agent? You don't know what's going on. You're nervous. You have this random 1-page side from the script, and you're nervous. But what I learned finally was just to walk in with the same confidence of having the part already, and that was the secret. I learned it kind of late after I was starting to get burned out of acting, starting to get burned out of taking time off work, going to auditions, not getting the part, wasting an entire day. But you kind of learn things, and if I go back into acting now, I kind of know some secrets or whatever. Just walk in with confidence, read the lines, don't try to memorize it. I mean, it's just a reading. Like, you're not there to perform, you're just there to give them an impression of you. Yeah. And I got to sit in some where I was on the other side of it, where I would read for people that came in. And you can tell within 3 seconds of them walking in the door whether they're going to get it or not. I mean, whether they have it or not. So, and it has nothing to do with the person's abilities. It's just, you kind of know, like the casting agent knows in 2 seconds whether you are right for it or not. But
yeah. So what would they be looking for? Was it different with each role?
Whether... Probably listening and reacting. Those are the two probably the biggest things. Like, can this person listen and can they take direction? So if they gave you a note, which they usually do in an audition, they will tell you, okay, we'll try it this way. And if they can't do it, they're not going to be able to take direction. And so, and just knowing your lines and hitting your mark. I mean, it's like so cliche, but it's just, but it's true. But.
Yeah. So, you showed me when we came in here that you were in the Rolling Stone.
Oh yeah.
So
I haven't been on the cover of Rolling Stones, but I've been in Rolling Stones. Yeah,
you've been on the back cover.
Yeah,
of Rolling Stone.
This was cool. I was really proud of this. Like, and this came out because I noticed it was like 1999. So it's.
Yeah. So you were going to say before it so rudely cut you off, it's as old as me.
Yeah, so Ask Jeeves, that was cool. That was my first big camp. Just I auditioned for this. I'm not a model, but they would take stills of actor. Can't remember the name of it, where they take stills of you acting. So I was in the river pretending to fish. Jeeves actually wasn't even there. I was standing in the river because they actually filmed the commercial and did the shoot the same day. So Jeeves he's kind of superimposed in there, but it was a cool day. I felt like a superstar that day. I mean,
Yeah.
I had my own trailer. I got anything I wanted. I was getting paid a lot of money to do that, and I was, in the water for 15 minutes.
And I know it's 1990 money, but like, how much were you getting paid for a full spread ad like that?
So it took me 15 minutes, and I got paid $1,500. I was getting paid $100 a minute. I mean, if you want to break it down like that, but it was pretty cool. So there's a lot of money in advertising. I mean, I wish I could do more of that, but yeah. So cool.
I think the rule of thumb, and Coke started it, was 28% of profits go to advertising.
Yeah, I mean, it's
so
amazing.
You think about a big corporation like that.
Yeah, it's amazing how much they spend on advertising. But that was the cool thing about acting. It's like, and voiceovers. Like voiceovers is actually the funnest. I wish I could. I mean, I really should just get a mic, and I have a computer. We just don't have Wi-Fi out here, but I could do voiceovers all day long. I mean, they were so much fun to just show up in a little studio, record some things.
I mean, honestly, if you got a hotspot on your phone, you just got to email the file.
But maybe that's what I'll be doing from here on out. I mean, I'll do voiceovers while I paint.
Do a Bob Ross. So I guess between the acting and everything, was most of your focus on acting, or was it still on art, or I guess the art of painting?
That's the interesting thing. Like when you're a creative, like you want to do a lot of things, like, and I want to do, I want to do pottery. I want to do, there's so many things I want to do, but there's no way that I could have a pottery wheel in here. I mean, if I did it, I mean, that's insane. But, acting was an outlet. I bought a piano. I mean, I taught myself how to play the piano. My piano is actually my easel. So this is actually a piano. So I played the piano for a while. I wrote a couple of plays. I'm writing a novel still, so that's that's in the works. So it's just an outlet. It's just another arm to and I'm in a painting phase now, but I mean, I don't know if I might get tired of it. I may.
So let's talk about the plays you wrote. Were those ever performed, or was it just a passion project sort of thing?
So this one, The Architects, got the furthest it got was a reading. So it got an audience, and it got a cast of people that just sat and read it to an audience. And then I got notes. So that was as far as that one got. But
so besides Architects, what is it about?
And it's misspelt for a reason. So The Architects is interesting. It's and that comes from, I guess, my Mormonism, and I'll spoil it. As far as like the plot and everything. But so Mormons believe that, like, if you are good enough, or if you go, you can be God of your own planet one day, right? Which is kind of strange. So Architects is about, well, these two beings are interviewing this guy about being a god, and they're like, well, okay, so how do you make a snowflake, or how do you make, like, you really want to be a god of your own world? If you, like, it seems like you would have to know more than kind of what we've been taught on Earth, right?
Yeah.
Like, who knows how to make a snowflake? I mean, so, but it's all little vignettes, but it's just all about building on a foundation that's kind of unstable, building, like, one scene is talking about how, people like in the 20s or whatever, people knew how to build a house. People knew how to do, and there are people still, obviously they know how to build a house, but maybe they did it better back then. They actually took the care, and then electricians and people that actually knew how to do electricity work. Now, this day and age, like you open up a wall and somebody built a house, and then they've connected just electrical cords connecting each other. There's no they just do it half-assed or whatever. So the architects is all about just building on a civilization that's just kind of crumbling on itself. So anyway,
so before we move on to that one, just because I'm interested.
Okay.
So you mentioned like Mormonism. So are you still practicing?
Yeah, no. So I had my name removed. Gosh, back in 2007, I officially had my name removed from the books, I guess. But
yeah.
Proposition 8 was a big thing. I don't know if there was just a bunch of political stuff, and I just couldn't do it. I didn't want to be a member anymore. But
yeah. No, I was just curious because just Mormonism seems pretty hyper conservative, so I was wondering how that related to.
Yeah, I mean so my whole family, like I've got members of my family that are go to church every weekend. My family, we went to church, but it wasn't, we didn't feel like we had to. Like I didn't feel like I had to go to church every Sunday. But there are people that, do in the community and all that. But I consider myself a spiritual person more than a religious person. And so in East Texas, I mean, that's it's kind of awkward because, I mean, I don't go to church, but I also don't, kill things, and I'm honest, and I don't, I feel like I'm a good person, but I'm more spiritual than I am religious, I guess. But,
yeah. No, I was just curious, kind of how that related to your artwork. Like, obviously, you use it in the writing of that, and
there's some interesting symbol. Like, there's one painting I did. I don't know where it is, but I like in the Bible and stuff like that, and in the Book of Mormon. In one, like when I was a kid, I remember they had illustrations, of the angels fighting and all that stuff. And I always thought that was it's kind of cool illustrations and everything like that. But that really affected my aesthetic. But I don't know. But no,
I was just curious. So let's go on to the...
Oh my, Spirit Weeds. So I've named a couple of paintings. One painting, Spirit Weeds, but this was a play that I wrote while I was writing Relative State, which I'm still writing. But this all came from research that I was doing. It's probably cultural appropriate. I mean, or what is it called?
Cultural appropriation.
Yeah. So because Spirit Weeds is about, all right. So there's this guy and if you ever get it produced on stage, it would just be a giant cliff, right? That's the whole set and then this guy comes down. He's a rope climber. He's a mountain climber. He comes down, and then there's kind of like a hole in the cliff. There's kind of like a cave type thing. And there's another character in there who's indigenous. And so this modern, white, rich, seems rich. He's got a lot of equipment, climbing equipment, comes down, and he's like, meets this guy. And he's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, well, I'm just hanging out, blah, blah, blah. They get talking. They eventually find out that he's dead. I mean, so he fell off the cliff and all that stuff. And so in the second act, we find out that he's a ghost, because he tries to go after he's hanging out with this guy for a little bit. He goes down and he tries to get off the cliff. And so he goes down and down, and then he disappears. And then all of a sudden the rope comes back down, and he's run backstage and gone up the ladder and all that stuff and climbed back down. So he can never escape this cliff. So Spirit Weeds really essentially is about like all the stuff as Americans or materialistic, like all of our material stuff that we have, our trucks, our SUVs, or ATVs, and everything that we have in this life, our iPads, our computers. Do we take that to the other side? And it was all about this, the native, indigenous Americans, I guess, or just Indians, with the respect that they have for Mother Nature and Earth and all that stuff. Are they there on the other side with us? Like, or are we there with them? And all the stuff that we take to the other side with us, are we kind of spirit weeds to them? Are we, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but yeah,
No,
I mean, that's the
think
gist
I
of
get-
it, is just like,
Yeah.
all the junk that we take, do we take it to the other side? Cause it just seems like, I don't know. I mean, maybe people are ready to go, like at any given time, ready to go to the other side and be okay with just being okay with just having nothing except for, the deepest meanings of your life that you are taking with you. Or will you miss, have you read Lincoln in the Bardo? Well, okay. So, there's a character who takes things to the other side that he misses. Like, will we experience that on the other side if we're not, truly ready to be there? Like, will we miss our iPads? Will we miss, Call of Duty? Will we miss painting? Will we miss, stupid stuff like that? But that's what Spirit Weeds is about. Like, so,
No, it's definitely an interesting idea. I mean, just the first concept reminds me of, Twilight Zone episode.
yeah,
Have you ever seen the one where the guy goes to hell but he doesn't realize it at first?
probably.
And basically he's getting everything he ever wanted.
Oh, wow.
He can. He was kind of a crook kind of character. He can walk down the street, kick a cop if he wants to.
Oh, okay.
He wins all the time at the slot machines and stuff. And then
And that's hell.
and then he's just kind of like, well, what's the point of this?
Yeah. It's
So
too much, like a good thing, or like
yeah,
you realize it.
yeah, or there's no real challenge to it or whatever, and he's
Oh yeah, that'd be interesting.
he's like, because there's this one guy there who's kind of his angel servant guy. He comes and gets him whatever, and he's like, hey man, I'm kind of tired of this place. Why don't you take me to the other place? He goes, you're already there.
Yeah, nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, and then too, the ideas of, will we miss stuff here?
Yeah.
Which, always freaks me out as a kid thinking about the afterlife.
Yeah, I know. It freaks you out. Like, but I don't know. Who knows? But that's a whole other
whole other
podcast. Yeah, jeez. But I'll mention, Trisha's Rose City Framing.
Yeah.
I got to, thank her so much, because she is, as far as trajectory wise, she is a major reason why I'm even here with you today, or, so I got to thank her, because I was in a really bad place 2 years ago, after a loss, and I was in a deep depression, and I started painting again, and it kind of brought me out of it. And I wanted to paint a picture or something for each of my family members. And so before Christmas, I got them all framed, and I took them all to Trisha's. I had seen her shop, because I go to the cleaning company is right next door, and that's kind of where I do my dry cleaning and stuff. And so I had seen the grand opening. I hadn't gone in there yet, because I didn't really have a reason to, and I started taking all these little paintings in there to get framed for Christmas, and she was like the main reason to keep going, like because I was just really just painting for fun. I still do. I mean, I just really just paint for myself and for fun, but she was really encouraging to join, Palette of Roses. That's the art league here in town, and I gotta mention them and Deanna and everyone there. All the artists. I mean, every artist that you've interviewed so far is with them. They meet every third Thursday of every month. They've got a speaker that usually comes on every meeting, or they have a demo by an artist. Lots of activity. They give you like heads up on art shows, and really like as far as networking goes. And Antoine's, super networker. So it's the importance of networking and all that stuff. You can network with so many artists and shops and stuff like that. I mean, everyone that goes, like Trisha's Rose City Framing, Justin Brown at Edom Art House, Chris Brown at Modern Country Art and Design. He actually spoke at one of the meetings once, and he's in Winsboro. Studio Art Lounge. She's, that's a cool place to hang out if you're an artist and show your stuff. But there's lots of opportunities if you're an artist, if you want to be seen or hang your stuff up in any of these shops, talk to them, and there's lots of opportunities to.
Studio Art Lounge, is that the one downtown next to the...
So it's across from
Southside
Caldwell Elementary. It's on College Avenue.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's next to Lord's Bakery and Espresso Cafe.
No, it's a different place than I was thinking, but
yeah.
I do know where that is.
So, and there's a fundraising event May 11th, 6 through 8, benefiting Children's Village of Texas, helping abused and neglected homeless children of East Texas. So that's May 11th, but meet the artist. There's like 12 artists there, and I've got 3 of my paintings hanging there with 12 other really cool artists, but go check her out.
So I guess before I want to close this or anything, I'd like to know, like, where do you see your art going, or where would you like to see it go?
I wanted to go to somebody's house. That's where I would like to see it. But,
preferably
in
not the
house.
dumpster or something.
Yeah, not at Goodwill. Which, so there was, one lady, she had just bought a bunch of paintings at an estate sale from an artist. You see these like TikToks and all that stuff, and she goes, hunting for, treasures and stuff like that. But she bought like 75 pieces of art for really cheap. But this artist had tons of paintings in her house. Like, I'm just, if you pass away, all that is just going to end up at Goodwill or something, or, just be thrown out. And so I want my art, I don't know, I want to get better. I'm practicing, I'm learning every day. I'm disciplined, and I paint every day, whether I like it or not, whether I'm sick, whether I'm tired, whether it's after work. Sometimes I'll wake up at 5 a.m. and paint before work.
So do you find it hard to find inspiration when you've got like a set schedule you do?
Yeah.
Or
and after you've talked to people all day, or if you've had a really bad day, or you get a Karen, or just like some days you're just absolutely mentally drained. Those are the most difficult days. But those are the days I usually will prime, or I'll texture a canvas. I usually save the painting for Saturdays and Sundays on my days off. But on those bad days, you can still, texture a canvas, or you can prep the canvas, getting it ready to paint on the days where you have more energy, or so, but.
Yeah. Well, unless you want to take this somewhere else.
I want to like tell you how cool I think this podcast is. I mean, like, I wanted to ask you if you thought that when it was conceived, or when you first started doing it, is it kind of what you expected, better than what you expected, or where do you see it going?
I mean, and I would say that by now I thought I'd have a few more views on stuff, but also in another form, it's kind of better than I could expected.
Cool.
I think everybody, when they start something, has sort of this idea and kind of builds it up to a certain amount of grandeur, but I feel like I've learned more than I thought I would have at the beginning of it.
Was it something that you planned for a long time? I mean, after school, like, did you think you were going to do this, or was it just like an idea that just came to you one day? Or
it was sort of something I wanted to do. I remember as a kid just watching this weird like PBS travel show where some guy's like out in the middle of nowhere in Russia, and like I couldn't tell you anything about it, but I've always just found people interesting, and so I was graduating school. The mass communications is kind of geared towards going into working in like a newsroom or something like that locally, and I don't want to sound like I disliked anybody in my class or anything, but there were yeah, but there was a divide, and I saw it changing. Of early on, the people who were interested in doing journalism, interested in figuring out the story and people and stuff like that, and then as time went on, it was, I don't want to say more political, but more ideological. A lot of people just saying stuff with preconceived notions about people. Especially, if they had some different lifestyle than them or something.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to be able to sit down with people and talk to them. And I think I've learned a lot that more than I could ever thought I would have.
It's cool what you're doing. I think the people that you interview, and they're just people that live around it. I mean, and there's people that and talk to every day, but you don't ask, you don't ask them certain questions. I mean, I know who Trisha and Brian are, and Heather and Ingrid, but without that interview, it's so cool how you get an insight deeper into their lives and stuff like that. And Taiwanese was cool. I mean, like her ability to network and stuff. And I actually I need to find her. I want to trademark something. I want to do a T-shirt design. I had no idea how to do that. But,
I've got her number. I'm
cool.
sure she'd be fun.
But then, your professor, Zach's interview was really cool. And that was everything that happened to his dad. The cartel stealing his planes and stuff like that. It's nuts. And Joseph, or what was his name? The guy who went to. He was doing medical stuff in. Oh yeah,
what was his name?
Yoza.
Yeah, it was.
But his story was cool.
I'm so bad with
but there's
it.
so many. I mean, and it's so cool how you get to talk to all these seemingly, normal people, but are not, and but it's commendable. I think. I
think that's the biggest thing I've learned because I kind of had this idea like, oh, I'm going to do this for a couple of weeks, and then I'm going to have to like look at Dallas or somewhere.
Yeah.
And you like really don't know who's living next door until you start looking, and then you meet one person and they send you off to 3 more people. And like I have no shortage of people right now.
It's like the ALS challenge, the ice bucket challenge.
Yeah,
so
it very much is. but yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was cool.
That was great.
Thanks, Isaac.
Reach over the microphone.
Yeah, that was fun. I'm less nervous now. Can we start over?
Yeah, we'll just record another one now. Oh, hi. You made it to the end. Congratulations. Not many people do that. While you're here, as well, like and subscribe and check out our social media on Instagram and Facebook under the same name as down there. Thanks.
saying how